We're going to, at Election Central, we're going to have our doors open if the weather permits, so we have better airflow, better air quality.
Okay, very good.
Question about the masks. We'll have them available, but people will need to ask for them if they don't have them. Is that correct?
We'll have someone at the door that says, we have signs up, of course, but we also have someone at the door, and the person without a mask walks up, we say, would you like a mask?
Okay. But we can't actually force people to wear them? Or
No.
can-
Okay. The format of this meeting's a little different than our regular work meeting. We're going to be more structured and more parliamentary in this meeting. So I want to invite anyone who's in the listening or watching audience, if they have a question, to raise their hand and raise their hand on the little hand icon that you'll find under participants at the bottom of the list. And we will stop at each parliamentary section that we go through to answer any of those questions. Okay, was there anything else on cleanliness and safety that we wanted to?
And hand sanitizer for voters to access if they would like.
Okay. Is this the good stuff from the brewery?
Actually, we have quite a bit from the Secretary of State, so.
Oh, okay. Okay.
In addition to the brewery.
All right. Is there anything else on cleanliness anyone else wants to add? All right. Then let's move on to the first article of old business, unsettled delinquent filings review. Karen, have we had any updates from anyone on paying their requirements?
Well, I can't remember the last time we've done it, so I'm only down to 2 people. Which I just.
Okay, who are the 2?
Yeah, I thought you were going to ask.
We can come back to that.
Malone, Ryan Malone. Is that
Okay.
I got to find the other file.
Okay. When you find it, just holler and we'll go back to it.
I found it.
Okay.
How about Carl Bowen,
Okay.
County Council at Large, and Ryan Maloney, City Council.
Okay. Very good. And so we're going to pursue them more vigorously between now and the next meeting.
Getting the phone.
Yeah. Okay.
Not this last time.
Let's move on. Is there anything else on that section that anyone wants to talk about? Nope. All right.
I guess just to mention that it is part of your responsibility as a candidate to file your reports in a timely fashion. And if you can't, then one would question whether or not you can do anything else on a timely fashion.
Yep. It's a good question to ask. All right, let's move on to the polling sites. We had 2 groupings that were outstanding. Who wants to go with the new news?
I'm gonna talk about Genesis.
I can tell you a little bit about the update with Genesis and the ramp.
Okay, this is Genesis Church on the bypass.
Yes, so we were going to try to get SAWS to help them create a permanent ramp. And so SAWS was contacted by Michael Shermas. They came, or they took Michael took pictures and took measurements and that such yesterday. And before that, they found out that SAWS would do it for a church and they could do it on the timeline that we needed it. When they got the pictures and everything, they found out SAWS cannot do it. They think it's not feasible to even use a temporary or a permanent one with the situation that they have. There's too many things that are obstacles. One would be if they really actually created it, would not allow the doors to be closed. So that's a problem. And there were other things. So at this point, they gave a suggestion that perhaps they could put a ramp for the other door.
For the southern doors.
Yes, and then the ramp would go closer to the highway, going that direction toward their patio.
Yeah.
And so I contacted Pastor Tim of Genesis and asked if they are interested in doing that. In the meantime, they have done some more research on their own, and they really don't like that idea, which SAWS didn't even know if it would work. It was a thought. And so they do not want to move forward with it with all the complications and almost improbability. SAWS even said that if this was a residential and they wanted this to be fixed, they would probably tell them that they would have to move because they cannot fix it. Now, Genesis has got other ideas and they will have other means, and they're not held to the same, you know, they can make choices independently, and that's what they will be doing.
Right. They're not held necessarily to the same standards as a business would be. But we still have an obligation to our voters who require accessibility.
Right. So we can have Genesis as it is. They may have something changed, but I don't think it's going to help.
So they're opposed to even a temporary ramp to the main doors under the portico?
Genesis is not, but SAWS said that.
Well, forget SARS. Right? If we rent a ramp and not build one.
Well, they're saying they can't even see how you'd rent one and make it work. I'm just
Okay.
passing on information.
Okay.
You can talk to Michael. He has the full scoop on it, but he said they told him a temporary won't work.
Okay. Yeah, that part is new news. And that's unfortunate. All right. So we'll have to continue this to Tuesday's work meeting, and that will be the end of it. We'll have to resolve it for sure on Tuesday, right? Because we're right down to the deadline.
I thought we had an answer here, and so it was sad to hear that we really don't have an answer.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Okay.
Yeah, so Michael called me and I got all that same information, and then I just talked to the church probably 10 minutes ago, right before the meeting, but he was pretty prepared for it. I mean, he kind of knew, and they already had made a decision, and I think he even met with his board. So they've been very, very helpful in trying to make this work too, and want it to work for themselves, of course, obviously.
Sure. But
Is there any sort of a way you could put like a lift ramp there? Something that would be electronic?
I don't think so. I don't know. I mean,
Stability, it might be an issue with stability.
it is kind of odd when you start thinking about it in that light. But again, I'm not.
It's got a slope
It's,
right there.
yeah.
I mean, I guess those would probably be quite expensive too, but there must be some options in terms of a lift as opposed to a ramp. But again, I don't know.
yeah, okay.
And I know the church doesn't want to spend tens of thousands of dollars. I don't know what that would be.
No. But okay,
Well,
at this,
I'm
at
talking
this,
more in terms of a temporary fix that isn't as, as encumbrance as a ramp because of space issues and the way it's already set up. Whether there's a possibility that somebody has something like, a wheelchair lift, that would be an option. And I don't know whether it would be prohibitively expensive or if there are other issues. But that might be the other issue to look at.
right.
Never seen that described in the ADA for polling places.
I haven't either.
Okay. So we'll have to do some quick research on whether there are any additional alternatives between now and Tuesday. And Tuesday, we've got to put the nail in the coffin one way or another.
Correct.
We're out of time to come up with new solutions for this.
Again, that the clerk is, very, very thankful to the church for all they've done for us and for even putting up with us during this difficult time. They've been very easy to work with.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
So
great.
we'll make the decision on Tuesday. Am I hearing that correctly?
We will, what I'll do is recess this meeting, and if we're able to make a decision in time for the paperwork to go in, then we'll be able to take care of that. on the fly. We have until, actually, Tuesday is the deadline.
That is
Does-
correct.
Does it have to be postmarked Tuesday or faxed on Tuesday? or is it, 12:01 Tuesday morning?
I
We
think
can probably scan it to them on Tuesday.
we have to head into the election office by closing on Tuesday.
All right, just wanted to make sure. So we're taking it right down to the wire to make sure we can
Yeah,
get an accessible solution for Genesis. All right, so then we have to defer the Meadowood Genesis UU decision. All right. Let's move on to the last remaining one, and let me bring up that on my share screen.
We're not going to say anything about UU
I think
Church.
you need to. Before we move on, we've heard from the UU Church.
Yes, please give me an update while I'm trying to figure out how to share my screen.
Yes, so this is fun. They have said they will allow us to have the sanctuary as well as the fellowship hall. So that
Great.
is a go. And they
And-
also let us
and-
in,
Yeah.
Sunday afternoon.
Great. So all the chairs in the sanctuary are movable. So that's a huge amount of space for us. So we will be able to accommodate Meadowood there.
Mhm.
Do we want to vote on just that section to combine Meadowood with UU and then deal with Genesis as a separate entity? Or do people still harbor an interest of having Genesis and Meadowood together?
I will say I did look at the traffic situation for people from Meadowood. If they're coming down, what is it, Milo B. Simpson Road, whatever, they would have to cross the highway, and there isn't a light there. But there are options for them to get to a light if they need to. They could go out Tamarack and Dunn and then come back, and it's not, so maybe a couple of miles longer as far as that trip goes. If they went to Genesis, they could actually make that whole trip without ever having to cross the bypass. But I think accessibility is probably a bigger issue than the driving issue.
Yeah, especially for the Meadowood crowd, I would think
Exactly.
that has to rate very highly. It's starting to look better and better to me too.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Where do we sit then? Do we want to try to combine Meadowood with UU, or do we want to wait until we get a Genesis reading on Tuesday? Any preferences?
I don't think there's a need to settle those two now. I think we could vote on everything other than our question mark ones.
Okay.
So that Karen can relay that to Hart, and Hart can deal with all of the other precincts.
Okay.
But maybe this one, we just finalize all of that on Tuesday.
All right. Very good. So that takes us to the one remaining one, and that's the Ellettsville kludge. And how do we want to handle that? So St. John's is going to stay St. John's.
Yes.
We have the possibility of moving Edgewood and the Ellettsville Fire Station to the Ellettsville Christian Church, or moving the high school to the town hall and using the church for the fire station crowd. We had a little discussion on this before. Do we have any additional thoughts on that? We cannot move the fire station to the town hall.
I still
Go ahead, Carolyn.
go with my contention that it's easier if we move both of them to the church. It will cause a lot less confusion for the voters. And I think the church is big enough to handle all of that.
You know, I have to agree with that. And what do you say, Nicole?
Okay, the clerk, Nicole,
Yes.
via text message says that she would like to just utilize both churches, St. John's and the Ellettsville Christian Church. It does create confusion when you send people everywhere.
Okay,
So that would be less confusing for the voters. And it's a huge facility,
it is.
very
It
accommodating.
is. Yep. All right. So can we have a motion that we close on that?
I'll make a motion that we combine Edgewood High School and Ellettsville, and Ellettsville Fire Station precincts at the Ellettsville Christian Church.
I second that.
Okay.
I
All
guess
those in favor?
I should add for the purposes of the 2020 general
Yes,
election.
just for the election. Yes. For the 2020 election. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. It is passed. So the only issue remaining outstanding is the Genesis Church issue, which involves UU and Meadowood. I'm sorry, what?
Have we dealt with the Indian Creek issue?
I thought we dealt with that last time.
Yeah, that's pretty cut and dried. We have no options there.
Yeah.
Okay, and they are, I mean, the Lions Club is good with everything. That was, I thought, was the
Yes.
question was.
Yes, we got a thumbs up. Karen has been hard at work on the phone since the last meeting, and she has pretty much tied up everything for the election for us, right?
Yes,
Pretty much.
pretty much.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Okay, so we can move ahead with certainty that all of these issues are resolved in the minds of the people who own those facilities. Okay, let me jump back to the agenda. And I have no idea where the agenda went. One second.
And I can't find it.
Hey, we've invaded your space.
I think we're up to state decisions and other issues affecting the fall 2020 election, COVID strategy and site availability.
Right. Is there any discussion? Are there any issues people would like to bring up?
Are
Yep.
we going to discuss a potential mailing at some point, perhaps soon
Good point.
to voters, once we know which polls are going to house which precincts?
Okay, who is speaking?
That's Sherry.
I'm sorry. I should have turned it. Forgive me.
Okay, I can't see people's lips move. Okay. Is the clerk's office prepared to provide the finances to do this?
I have spoken with the clerk and she does know, we've run it by her about doing a mass mailing, only to households. We wouldn't do it to every voter. We would do it to every household. So
Okay,
we do know the cost of that, and we can cover that in the budget. And I think I got the okay on that this morning. It would be a
Okay.
generic, like an informative mailing. It would tell all the polls, how to register to vote, who to call, travel board, absentee, all those things that are necessary to run the election. When early voting starts, what days, locations, very informative. And it doesn't matter the size of the flyer, it's just one cost. And we haven't nailed down the total cost yet, so I'm not gonna throw out numbers, but we do have the money set aside.
okay. This is one mass mailing, not a mailing to each precinct.
Right, and it's not to registered voters, it's to households that are good addresses in Monroe County.
Right,
And so
Okay.
Go
so
ahead.
basically what we're saying is that what we would do is to have a mailing that has a generic list of poll sites and how to check where you yourself vote.
That is correct.
And it
right.
would go to all households, whether they're registered or not? Is that what I'm hearing?
Let's say that you have 100,000 people registered to vote in Monroe County. But of those 100,000, some people live together. So it would drop the mailing down from 100,000 to, let's say, 62,000. So it's a money-saving venture by just doing it one per household.
Okay.
The post office has the list. We've already got the list.
Okay.
2,000.
There's still a possibility of confusion among voters since we've moved precincts around in the spring and some of them are going to move around in the fall. I'm still worried that we'll get people showing up at the wrong spot and saying, what the heck? So we'll have to put up signs at those locations like we did last time to make sure that everybody knows if you go to the fire station, it's going to say on the door, you're voting at the Christian church and here's how to get there.
But there will be a lot fewer to.
Yeah, there will be a lot fewer. It won't take all day to go around and put those up. But let me ask another question.
Go ahead.
People are always confused about what precinct they're in. And if we give them a list of precincts and where they vote, we're still going to get some blank stares. It's going to be difficult for some people if they don't know or remember what precinct they're in. So is it possible we can put the precinct number on the mailing label?
No.
That is, if it were possible, it would also be an extra cost too, he told us. But we, to
But that
help,
would be a lot less than doing separate precinct mailings.
yes. But to help offset some of this, we'll run it in the paper, we'll run it on the media, we'll do commercials on television. We're trying to get the word out there.
Okay.
And I think if we are explicit and upfront and have it in large bold letters and 47 type, whatever, where to go to check your personal registration.
Give us a call.
Because if they look at the, if they even bother to look at the mailing label, they're not going to still remember what precinct they're in.
Yeah, I'm just looking at as many ways as possible to try to limit confusion at voting time.
Yeah.
And also, Tree said it's going to go to all households, whether they're registered to vote or not.
Right.
So.
Right. So we'll get some number of people showing up who aren't registered.
As always.
As always.
We'll say too, as usual, yes.
And that one person who showed up last time, the day after the primary to vote, is going to show up the day after the election to vote.
Well, hopefully not.
But we'll do our best to get everyone there on election day.
Well, the voters are going to have to plan ahead and they're going to have to make it work for them too. It would be nice if, everything worked out wonderfully but we do have phones and we do have the internet. We're here waiting for the phone to ring. I feel like I'm doing a telethon.
And I know our friends in the media are going to do their best. And I know that to get the word out. And I know that Nicole is going to be hitting the radio waves.
Yes.
To make sure the message gets out. So it would be helpful if we got a format of that flyer done as quickly as possible so that we can actually have it available in Election Central when people come in as well.
Okay.
And I'm thinking of people who are coming in to register. Okay. Is there any other business to be brought before the chair?
I don't know. Do we want to open that last section open to questions before we move on?
Okay. I was just trying to find this so I can stop sharing here for a second. Let's see how our participants are doing. There are no hands up. Does anyone on the panel have a question or an issue they want to discuss?
I don't believe we have it on the agenda, but we might want to talk about poll workers.
All right, let's have an update.
Sharon, you want to do that?
Sure. Karen and I just had a meeting with the recruiters. At present, we are finalizing the list of poll workers that we're going to have at each poll. We are planning to try as best we can to have an extra poll book at each poll so that inspectors and judges can jump in and help voters in case we get lines forming. But of course, we're going to also staff poll books with clerks, of course, without having an inordinate number of them. So we're trying to be we're going to try to predict as best we can how many people we need to recruit. And if things are really busy at early voting in person, we will perhaps be adding staff at polls. We're just going to see how it goes. But we have recruiters in place. They are going to be starting on Tuesday to they've actually had both of them. They've had a lot of individuals contact them already. Oh, I realize I'm now on the computer. A lot of people are contacting their recruiters already interested in voting for both parties, which is wonderful. So that's planned. We're still finalizing details. And of course we need to know polls and all those things, but it's in place and starting in like 4 days, 5 days.
That's great.
One more question, Sherry. Is there a link on the in the poll workers portal on the Monroe County Voters.us website for people to contact the recruiters through? There have been some questions about how to get
Well,
that.
we're literally, we don't have the final emails and everything for the recruiters. We're going to be getting that hopefully end of day today.
Okay.
Okay.
It's right on there.
Yeah, I've had a few requests and I've forwarded those to the party chair, the appropriate party chair, and to Karen in the meantime.
Hal and Carolyn, the website monroecountyvoters.us is updated and it is current. And you've got it says how to register, how to vote, how register to be a poll worker. And it has their email address and it also has their phone numbers. So we're good.
The place to send people to say,
That's the
you
place
want
to
to work,
send it.
this is where you should go.
You're good.
That's terrific. That's terrific. You guys are really on the ball. You're making this so easy. Okay.
Yeah, I will say again, as I believe I said at the work session, that the website really is so much improved over previous years and much more intuitive and helpful than it has been in the past. So thank you to
It's
everybody.
a learning curve for us every election. We try things, if they don't work, we try something else. What does work, we use again. But the pandemic has not been a learning curve too much.
Okay. Are there any other issues before we open this up to questions from the audience?
I do have one question regarding the potential mailing to households. I understand there's no limit to size, but an entire page was taken up listing all of the precincts and therefore where each precinct voted. So if that is the case, I don't know unless we have access to use the second side to talk about travel board and early voting dates and how to register. So I don't know if we're allowed to use both sides or not.
To some extent, we are. We have to be able to have that address showing.
Was that, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear all that. Was that a yes?
Yes and no, to some extent. We have to be able to show the person's address, like it would say to the registered voter, and then it would give their address. We can put other little blurbs on that side too.
Okay. So it
So-
sounds like we have a requirement that this be a post card
I'm not
of
limited to
some
that.
size.
I can do an 8x11, 8.5 by 11.
But it takes a full 8.5 by 11 sheet just to list every precinct and where they vote.
So Tree, it would be a fold over piece of paper as opposed to it in an envelope, right?
No, it won't be an envelope. It will just be a flyer. Address on one side, info on the other.
Okay.
Okay. So
And
it'll
it
be a
can be colored, too.
heavier stock.
It will be a heavier stock.
So we'd have maybe a third of a page to be able to put additional information on there.
Maybe it's going to have to be laid out and we'll have to do a lot of,
I mean, we could
Really?
obviously list 30 polls or however many we have and say, okay, these are the precincts voting at this poll and these are the precincts voting at that poll. But for a voter to go to indianavoters.in.us to find their precinct and then to find the precinct on the list, if it's buried, I'm just trying to make it as easy as possible. And that took a full page
In the last
simply to
meeting.
list the precincts. if we can't target to a precinct.
Okay, well, let's take a look.
Maybe that's all
Yeah.
that it's on it or
Yeah.
whatever. So I don't know.
Let's see what we can do. It,
So that's why I
No,
just
that-
asked the question.
the last one was great. It was entertaining. It had, I appealed to it. It wasn't just 2 pages of text. So I'm sure we're going to see great things coming out of this team on the one for this fall as well. It's a great challenge.
Sherry did that, and she did a wonderful job.
Okay. Is there any other information or questions or discussion wanted by the panelists before I move to the audience? All right. We have a question or a hand up from Randy Paul. Randy, you can unmute and fire away.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I'd asked you once before, if you could clarify some things on poll workers. I'd asked you once before, you have to declare a party to work, right? You have to be Republican or Democrat.
Yes.
Is that what if somebody's not, there's no voting record? What if they've not been politically active? Is there any way, how do you check this? Do you check voting rolls or?
We check their voting history. We go back and we just check their voting history, how they voted in the primary. In Indiana, you don't have to be registered to a party. So we have to have some way to make it a fair distribution of Ds and Rs, Democrats and Republicans, working. So we check on their voting history. So
What
let's
if they
say if they've only voted in the general, then it becomes difficult for us because we don't know where to put them.
Yeah, because I have a friend
But we
who,
do ask them, yeah.
I have a friend who doesn't have a voting history but wants to work. They
We
would,
would ask them who they most affiliate with, the Democrats or the Republicans.
okay, so it doesn't have to be verified.
No.
Okay.
If they've
All
never voted, no. Well, see, when you have people that vote for the first time, we don't
Would
know
be
how
something.
they would vote either. So we make exceptions for those and just plain out ask them.
All
Okay.
right. But
Thanks.
if they did indicate that they were party A and their voting history showed party B, then what?
That's a good one.
Then I would call them, and if they have changed, which they could, then I have to go to the party that's changed, party A, talk to that chairman, and they have to give me a good enough reason. They probably will have to communicate with the chairperson to explain why they are no longer A, now they're B. And then it's up to the chair to say yes or no.
Okay,
All right,
that's
thanks.
great. Yeah, thank you. Anything else, Randy?
No, thank you.
All right, great. Anything else from the board? All right, can I have a motion to recess?
I will so move.
Tree?
I second that.
Okay, all those in favor indicate
You say
by
I'm
saying,
done.
aye.
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 Okay, then we will adjourn until Tuesday at 2:30 for our weekly work meeting. And at that point, we will resolve the Genesis Church issue. Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. Have
Thank
a
you.
good day.